Hi friends! So today we are going to read a book called From Seed to Pine Tree. This week we're focusing on different text features, so take a moment to think about what you remember about text features. Alright, so different text features are things like pictures, photographs, charts, graphs, things like that help us better understand what we're reading. So during this read aloud today, we're going to break down the different text features that the book provides us, and we're going to see if we can use it to better understand the text. Okay. From Seed to Pine Tree, Following the Life Cycle by Suzanne Slade. Beautiful Pines. The heading that says Beautiful Pines is also a text feature. Pine trees are known for their long, thin leaves called needles. Pine trees are evergreen, so their needles stay green year-round. These beautiful trees are found in forests, parks, and maybe even your yard. More than 150 different kinds of trees belong to the pine family. They all have the same basic life cycle. Let's look at the life cycle of the short-leaf pine tree. Alright, so let's come over here to this text feature right here. It's a map. I'm sure you've seen something like it before. What is it a map of? If you said the United States, you are correct. When we look at maps, we want to look for something called a key. And I know a lot of you have talked about this and found this in math too. Where's the key? The little green box on the map, all the way in the left corner, says states with short-leaf pine trees. So, because the box is green, it's telling us that any of the states that are green, just like the box, are states with short-leaf pine trees. Now, we can read the caption to get some more information about what this map is telling us. It says, in the United States, the short-leaf pine tree is found in 22 states. It grows as far south and west as Texas, throughout the eastern part of the country, and as far north as New York. So now, not only do we have this map to look at, and the key that tells us what states the pine tree grows in, but we also have this caption to kind of clarify what the map is telling us. Alright, this next heading is called A Small Seed. A towering pine tree begins life as a tiny brown seed. The winged seed is protected inside a closed pine cone. In fall, the pine cone opens. The wind carries the winged seed to the ground. This small seed starts to germinate or sprout when temperatures rise in spring. A seed also needs water and air to begin to. Alright, so let's take a look at this little box over here in the right-hand corner of page 7. I know a lot of you might think it's a caption, but because there's not a picture or a diagram that this box is describing or talking about, it's actually considered a sidebar. So this sidebar says, a seed has nutrients or food inside itself to help it grow. It uses this food until the plant is big enough to make its own. A seedling sprouts. When a seed begins to sprout, the tough outer coat of a seed opens. Soon, tiny roots grow downward into the ground. They take in water and hold the seed in place. Soon, a green shoot sprouts upward toward the bright sunlight. Next, green needles grow from the shoot. The seed has become a young tree called a seedling. So, below the paragraph of a seedling sprouting is a short timeline of how a seed sprouts. Box 1 says the seed opens. Box 2 says roots grow. Box 3 says shoot sprouts. And box 4 says needles grow. And based on the information that we read in the paragraph above, we know that in box 4, that's also called a seedling. Now let's take a look at this sidebar over here. It says, most short-leaf pine seedlings die before they're a year old. Sometimes this happens because seedlings do not get enough water. Other seedlings are eaten by hungry insects. Often, too many seeds fall in a small area. There may not be enough nutrients for all of them to survive. Growing tall. A seedling needs air, sunlight, and water to grow. It uses these things to make food in its needles. This process is called photosynthesis. A shortleaf pine seedling becomes a sapling when it's 3 years old. A sapling has a strong woody trunk and looks like its parent tree. This sidebar says, during photosynthesis, pine trees make a gas called oxygen in their long needles. People and animals need oxygen to live. So after reading that sidebar, we can see that in this labeled diagram, the sunlight and the air are going into the seedling, and then the oxygen is coming out of it. We also see down below the water that the roots are sucking up for the tree to survive. A mighty pine. A sapling grows taller each year until it becomes a mighty pine tree. When a shortleaf pine tree is 20 years old, it will be around 60 feet, or 18 meters tall. Most full-grown shortleaf pine trees reach about the height of 100 feet. That's about as tall as a 10-story building. This sidebar over here says, in fall, some of the shortleaf pine trees' needles turn brown and fall off. Other needles stay green all winter. That's why it's called an evergreen tree. In spring, a pine tree grows new needles on the tips of its branches. You can see over here that next to the building, it tells you that the building is 10 stories tall. That's a text feature that's used to show you how tall these trees can actually grow. Flowers called pine cones. When a shortleaf pine tree is just 20 years old, it grows special flowers in the spring. The flowers are called pine cones. Some pine cones are male and others are female. New male pine cones are smaller than female pine cones. The long, thin male pine cones are yellow or green. New female pine cones are green. The thick scale on the female pine cones later turn brown and hard. The male pine cones also turn brown as time goes on. So in these two pictures of the male and female pine cones, they're labeled so that you know exactly which one is male and which one is female. Male shortleaf pine cones are about half an inch to 2 inches long. Female shortleaf pine cones are about 1 to 3.8 inches long. Making new seeds. Male pine cones make a yellow dust called pollen. The wind blows some of its pollen into the open scales of the female pine cone. Soon, the female pine cones trap the pollen inside. When the pollen fertilizes the egg inside the female pine cone, new pine tree seeds start to form. All right, and let's see what this sidebar says as well. Female pine cones can be fertilized by male pine cones on the same tree. And see, the picture, the photograph, or the illustration is showing you how that can be done. Flying free. When the new seeds are fully grown, the scales on the female pine cone open. In late October, these winged seeds begin to fall on the ground. The long wing helps the seeds float away from the shade of its parent tree. The seeds need plenty of sunlight to grow. Some female pine cones, such as those found on the jack pine and lodge pine trees, need heat to open. Forest fires create enough heat to open these pine cones and allow their seeds to fall out. That's interesting. The cycle begins again. After a long winter, pine tree seeds sprout in spring. In time, they grow into adult trees. These mighty pines provide homes for animals. Their long green branches give shade to hikers and campers on sunny days. During its life cycle, the shortleaf pine tree makes our world a more beautiful place to live. Most adult shortleaf pine trees are cut down for lumber when they're about 35 years old. It's hard to find a shortleaf pine tree that is more than 100 years old. However, a 314-year-old shortleaf pine tree was discovered in Arkansas not so long ago.